Now, in order to create a pipeline, first we look into the CI pipeline for a .NET project. Now, I go to pipeline, and as I said, there is a this is where I can create the pipeline using the visual editor. If once I create a pipeline, here is where I decide whether the pipeline needs to be created using the YAML file, the script-based pipeline, or a visual editor. So where is your pipeline code, right? So is it in any of these commonly used repositories, or you want to use the classic editor? Classic editor is the one where I'm referring to the visual editor to create pipelines. In this example, we'll use the classic editor, and we'll come back to create using a YAML file. So once I click on classic editor, it again asks me to select the source code location. So now here we are not selecting for the YAML file, but we are asking the pipeline to download a code from so-and-so repository. I can connect to various other third-party systems, but in this case, since my code is in the same Azure repos, I can directly say, I can select the project. I can have multiple projects in an organization, so the pipeline can access any of these repositories from any of the projects, right? And then once I select the project, let's say I select practice sessions, and then I select the repository name, and then I can also select what is the default branch you want. Whenever we trigger a manual build or schedule builds, what is the default branch? Generally, it is always the default main branch. Let me change it to main. It's always generally the main branch. And let's say continue. Now here is where you select the template either from the existing templates. Example, if you're building a .NET ASP.NET based applications, you can select the template, and you'll get the predefined list of tasks for that particular kind of projects. If you're building an Android project, once you select, it will give you the basic Android steps that is needed to build, and so on, and it for every type of projects and every type, you will see a template here. If we could create our own templates, we'll see that how to convert our pipelines into a template at a later time of this session. So for now, I'll select an empty job because I want to show from a scratch how do we do. So now this is the view for a new pipeline, or when you edit a pipeline. Let me edit the name. This is where you will edit the name of the pipeline. Right, and then so here you see the tasks where you're going to define the task that your CI pipeline will need to do. Depending on your technology, depending on what you're trying to achieve, you will have multiple tasks, and variables is where you will define all the dynamic values or anything that instead of hard coding it, you will be defining them here and using the variable in the code. We will look into that. And triggers are basically to identify whether automatic trigger is enabled for every commit and for which branch you want. In this case, only if the commit is done to the main branch, the automatic trigger would work. I can add multiple branches. I can choose the branch, or I can also say exclude main instead of include. If I say exclude any branch except main, if there's a commit, it would trigger. Include means that only if this branch is commit is only to this branch, it will trigger. Exclude is any branch except main, it would go ahead and trigger. Right, and options, and here you can basically select your the build numbering format and a few other settings, and finally history will give you the list of changes done to the pipeline ever since it was created. So now going back to the tasks, the first thing you see is the get sources section, where you will see the values that you selected previously for the source code. Now you could anytime change that. And one option here is to, whenever there's a build, do you want to start off fresh and clean the complete folder before downloading? Here I'm saying yes, and then I'm saying go ahead and delete everything that is inside the build directory to delete, so that every time it starts off as a fresh build. Okay. Now coming to here in the pipelines, there's important thing about the agent pool. This is where you decide whether you want to run your where you want to run your CI pipeline. Now in Azure DevOps, there are two ways of running your pipelines. One is using what is known as hosted agents, which is basically hosted in Microsoft and Azure environment. And then whenever your build is triggered, it would basically run on Microsoft environments and generate you the output and the build. And other approach you have is to have your own on-premise servers, on-premise agent, and then how and then everything your build and your CI scripts will run in your own agent instead of connecting to the Microsoft Cloud or Azure. Okay, so how in order to create a new so if I go to manage pools, so this is where under project settings I can create pools. Now pools are I can have multiple on-premise agents. I can have if it's a big project, I can have agents which are spread across the systems or across the time zones. And then whenever there's a new build, depending on the availability of the agents, the Azure DevOps identifies the agent and assigns the task job to be executed. So in order to create a new agent, you basically have to follow these on-premise steps. Your you download the latest if it depending on your OS, where you want to deploy your build agent. You download the required agent files and then follow the steps. Okay, again, as I said, we'll not be covering the build agent part here, but let's see if the time permits. And the end of the session, I will try to cover this. But basically, download the agent and follow the steps on premise on the screen to follow to set up the agent. Now again, in this case, I'm going to select the hosted agent, which is basically your Microsoft hosted servers. And here you see the agent job, right? So all the tasks that you configure can run in three different modes or three different locations. Example, right? Now if you see here, there is an agent job and there's an agentless job, right? An agent is something, just now we saw, I can select the build agent, right? So any task that I add on an agent job, uh, those tasks are executed on the agent, right? Which means that, let's say I'm deploying to an Azure, to a cloud server, and my agent is on premise. So all the tasks I configure here will be running on premise, and based on the script, based on the logic, it would go to the Azure if the task include connecting to the cloud. So other ways to run an agentless job. Agentless job runs on the server or a list of servers that we specify. Now this doesn't run on the agent. This may run on the target machine itself. If you're deploying to another VM on the server, after deployment you want to run some additional tasks, maybe update config file, maybe a few other settings. That's where you use the agentless job to run an target environment and then run some commands or tasks on the deployed server or a target environment. Okay, so in this case again, since you are doing a simple build, we will not be using agentless jobs here. Okay, and let me say it. Okay, so now coming to the agent job, now we have identified the agent to run. We have selected the source code. Now comes the step of what are the steps of building a .NET code. Now, as I said, this is a simple console-based .NET 5 project, right? So what do I need to build a .NET 5 or a .NET Core project, right? I basically need a .NET restore, a .NET build, and publish commands, three commands that we generally use. So when I say in agent job, I can click on plus to create a task. Okay, so when we now this is where you see a list of tasks that are coming up here. these are all tasks which are available publicly or available because you've installed a plugin from a marketplace, right? So now you have various kind of tasks that you can add for various categories like building, test, packaging, deploying, and you can also take install something from your marketplace, which and then include those tasks in your pipeline. So now I can also search. Since it's a .NET Core application, I have a task here which is .NET Core related task. So I click on Add, and here here I can change the name of my display name. Example, the first task in a .NET build in a .NET project is to restore the NuGet packages. So I'm going to say that it's a restore task, and I'm going to select the command as a restore command. And automatically, you can either what .NET command does is from the folder from where you run the project, it will either identify the solution file or a CS pros file and then start building that project. Or you can, if you want, you can also specify your own path of a CS pros. Example, in this case, I can specify to run console.demo.csproj. Then it would basically only build that particular CS project. If I don't mention anything, it would basically look for all the files in that folder and then start restoring and building. Okay, so and I leave all of this as a standard defaults. Okay, and now other thing, the next task after I do a restore is to do a .NET build. So again, I'll add .NET build .NET task. This time I want to build the project, so I'll keep it as it is, and I'll give the display name as .NET build. After I do a build, I need to publish, right? So I'll add the .NET build again, and then I'll say that command I want to run is publish. So here, here is where automatically when you do a publish, automatically .NET command will identify the web projects and try to deploy, try to build. But now in this case, this is not a web project, this is a simple console application. So I will remove the web projects and specify the project which I want to build, I want to publish. Right now that this project is published, now this is only published on a local folder on the build agent. How do we make it available for as an output of your CI pipeline? To do that, you have to publish this output artifact into as part of your pipeline, right? So for that, we need one more task, which is a task called publish build artifact. So publish build artifact is basically whatever path or whatever files we specify, those will be published into the pipeline execution as an output, which can then be used in a CD or other pipelines to download the artifacts and then start deploying. So here I will say, by default, it will try to publish from an artifact staging directory. Now what would publish do is it would publish it to the artifacts and it would come here. So now let us just try to save and run. So when I'm queuing, I can select the branch and details around that, and when it starts building, it basically connects to the Azure cloud, Azure agents, and then picks up the available agent there from the cloud and starts building the individual task one by one. Yeah, let's see if it picks up here. Yeah, it was able to find an agent. It has found an hosted agent here, and then an image of this type. And now it will go to step one by one. So it has checked out the code. .NET Restore is complete. Now we will try to build, publish, and then finally make the artifacts available for as a output. Now all the tasks are done. Now if I go back to the pipelines, you will see it was successful. And then here if I go into here now, yeah, so maybe it didn't publish because this folder is empty. We will fix that. Okay, now this is a way where you can create a .NET pipeline and then and then execute it automatically or manually, and this is what you would see. Now let's fix this. When I say .NET Publish, I'm also going to specify for now, for this demo, what I will do is I'll select the path which I want to publish. Okay, so I'll just say, if it works, let's see. Okay, so I'm saying basically look for a bin folder in the root and then just publish everything you find inside that. Right, so let's try this if it works.